sufficient that if I can say, we have heard from very broadly what Claude has given us an overview that linked up with the earlier speech by Jean-Pierre. In the morning, we talked about why they are here, because we want to know a bit more about this idea of this experimental restaurant that we talk so much about, which convey different meaning to different people. I'm sure if you ask 10 people, they all have different idea about what experimental restaurant is all about. But today, I think we have some insight from the speakers that we have in front of here, that they have tried their best to give us some new dimension. We had heard from you talk about very general thing about the habits that we're familiar about, but what from Vincent's speech we heard about something very heavy, your beamline or whatever, but that is radiation. He's from a different world, but he's trying to tell us that what he did for his research could be applied. Do I get it right? It could be applied to what we plan to do in our experiment. So, although question can come on how you can translate whatever you say to us just now to something which is very less complicated. Anybody, you put a mummy and he'll tell you this mummy ate what? The mummy were eating what food at that point in time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, if they can go that far, I'm sure what JP is planning to do is possible. Nothing is impossible in this world anyway. So we had the engineer showed us a lot of circuits, and I think he knows what he's talking about, but most of us doesn't. But never mind. That doesn't change his whole story. We still think that engineering can do their part. Now we heard about last speaker just now, Florence talking about things that you feel is workable, that should be done, but you're not sure if at the end of the day there are other things that may crop up and analysis and things like that. Facial expression, everybody, I mean, they may look happy, but they might not be transmitting the things that we want as a researcher. Maybe we'll be looking at satisfaction or the mood or what, whether they pay so much for it and things like that. So okay, I know we are supposed to stop in 10 minutes, but we're not going to do that because we have flown them right across half the world to be here today. So you are given the chance to ask anything you want about experimental restaurant of the future based on what you have heard this afternoon. I open the discussion to the floor. Still, yes.
Thank you very much to all the speakers for coming all over and also France. My question is addressed to Professor Dr. Jean-Pierre. I'm doing a research. I'm a master's student in philosophy of the studies. I'm doing a research about perception of having the perfect body image amongst Generation Y and how it influences their eating behavior. And now I am taking a theory from Isaac Elegant as what you said just now. But I am struggling to find out whether should I stay to that theory or to diverse to the theory of reason action. Because from my conceptual model that I made from the theory of planned behavior. It also consists of the gender as the limiting variable, and also norms and practices and also causality that influences eating behavior. So should I take the first theory as the theory of planned behavior or theory of business action? Because my main point is the body image of a person. They are very conscious of their body image that discusses the type of eating pattern that they have in their daily life.
Well, the body image is a very special topic, but maybe I failed to explain why I don't think theory of reasoned action or any similar theories do not do the job of helping us understand eating behavior, or at least not entirely. I said that, well, for instance, we have a very nice statistics from our National Statistical Institute, which similar to what other countries have, showing that if you're in France at 1 p.m., you can be sure 50% of the population is currently busy eating, right? As compared to Britain, where the peak time, where the most people are eating at the same time, is 1:10 p.m. and then 17% of the population busy eating. Now, if you ask people who at 12:30 or 1 o'clock stand up from their desk, join their colleagues, and march to the cafeteria, if you ask them, why are you going to have lunch at this precise time, my prediction is not that people will tell you. I've reached a point in my glycemia where I really have to make a decision and absorb some food. And the last intake I had was at 6:30, etc. and so on. I mean, they will tell you, actually, well, we did it. We asked people exactly what's going on. You know what the most common answer was? They said it's lunchtime. What's lunchtime? When you elaborate with people, anthropologists question various populations about their habits, they get more often than not the answer, I don't know, we've always done it this way. And that's, I say it's a pretty good definition of culture. So culture, to a large extent, is when, I would say, choice is not an option. You see, some of the pictures I showed about meals proceeding in various cultures, they do not include the possibility or even the notion that it would be possible for any single individual to make manifest their preference or their aversions or try to sneak away from the meal or that sort of thing. It's all programmed, it's a script that unfolds and that individuals apparently follow without necessarily deliberating. I think deliberation is the important word here. Without necessarily deliberating about the options. So, for instance, I always object, often object, maybe Paul doesn't remember, we've had this conversation several times, when he talks about food choice. I mean, I think choice is in one mutual publication we have about would you prefer 50 flavors, an ice cream parlor with offering 50 flavors or a selection of 10. I saw it as preference for variety. And I saw it as, among the American sample, it was not just the French and the Americans, it was 6 countries. And the highest rate of preference for the 10 selection of 10 was, if I remember correctly, the Italians, followed by the French. It was 75% for the Italians. It was a huge thing. Why bother about 50 if you know there's been someone taking the trouble of picking the 10, probably the 10 best, and doing part of the job for me, etc. and so on. So only the Americans, the majority of them, picked the 50. So why is that? Because choice is an ideological concept that is more important for Americans than for any other cultures, apparently, on the face of Earth these days. And it's sort of problem, at least, I mean, this could be called speculation, but at least it's my analysis or hypothesis. The American culture is permeated with the individualistic notion inherited from the British Enlightenment and the utilitarian theory of Jeremy Bentham and all that. And when we interview people, we do a semi-structured interview with Americans, compared to anyone in continental Europe, the difference is absolutely fascinating in the qualitative research, because people tell us that eating well is making the right decisions, making the right choice. There used to be no choice, now we have plenty of choice. We have to make the healthy choice, the right choice. So that was the genesis for the question, as it were. I wanted to put numbers and see whether choice was so important for me. And so that's what I meant. So there's a lot of what is done, performed in eating behavior that is actually probably something that is related to routines or a kind of script that is unfolding again. That's all I meant. Now, how does this apply to body image? That's probably a long story, but I'm not quite sure the more individualistic approach doesn't apply in that particular case. It's pretty long.
Yes.
I just want to, actually, I agree with the thought, but I want to point out that the French, or the European countries we study, are much more choice-oriented than most of the world. They're less choice-oriented than the Americans, but someone in India or in Ghana doesn't even think most of the time of choice. You know, dinner is what it is, and it's maybe a few variants, and that's what they're eating. And you don't think about anything else. You make quite a few choice decisions in France compared to those people, but you're right that the Americans are obsessed with choice. I mean, this is, the more the better is the model.
You know, I presented this particular data set, the result about the ice creams in Montreal. There was a meeting in nutrition, I forget exactly what it was. Anyway, there was a Harvard economist in the audience, Friedman, I forget his name. Friedman? Yeah, neoclassic, not the Friedman, the Chicago guy, but anyway. So he raised his hand and he said, when I presented the result, he said, "Excuse me, I have no reason to doubt your data, but I would like to ask, why would people choose less if they can have more?"
The answer is
The answer was that they don't.
Well, following up on this point, I wonder to what extent the heterogeneity of the culture in terms of the number of different kinds of social groups that are represented is related to the desire for choice. Because the desire for choice can be seen as a statement about oneself, namely that one isn't like everybody else, and so the more options there are, the more likely it is that there will be something there that will fit one. So it's not so much that you want to have 50 different things available, you want to have the one thing available that you will like, but you're aware of how much heterogeneity there is in the culture. So you need a lot of things to find the one that you want.
We did this questionnaire, this online telephone, and I was sort of patrolling behind the interviewers, listening to how they were dealing with the interviewees. And at one point there was one thing that may or may not answer your question. There was the guy had answered the question, the American subject, and then he added a comment. He said, well, in the end, I know I hate vanilla anyway.
Yeah. Almost everybody puts chocolate or vanilla in a basket of apples. That's the fact of the matter.
So I don't know what else to do.
Well, you could control for, you could put into a regression equation all these variables and see how much variance they're soaking up. So, it's a question that has an answer.
All the variables, which variables?
Social class, so the extent to which you've got social class, gender, ethnicity,
But we did.
religion, political persuasion. So how much variability do you have in those cultures to
Okay,
begin with?
it's age-related, it's sex-related, males more than females, younger more than older, urban more than rural, and ethnicity was just a bit difficult because it's sort of regulated in France. Questions you may ask about that so we can compare. But basically, that's what it is, and it's true that even in the European samples, when you have these variables, you get more of the choice-oriented type of answers. That's fact. So there might be a dynamic there, even. You see.
Professor, would you say it's just an illusion of having the choice? That they feel better about themselves when they have a choice, even when they know what they're going to have anyway.
Well, I mean, there is work on that. I mean, you know, and Paul, maybe you may add something. When you increase the number of options, you increase satisfaction up to a point, but then it decreases, and when you reach a certain level, then you get anxiety, and this is all Barry Schwartz work, The Tyranny of Choice, and it generates, even says it generates depression.
But the interesting thing about Barry Schwartz's work is it's done on Americans.
Yes.
And they find even there that more than a moderate level of choice produces a certain amount of tension because you try to decide what's the best choice among 30 ice creams. That's actually a very difficult task. Whereas if you're sitting in a French restaurant, they bring one out, you eat it, and you don't, it's fine.
And it brings regret, questioning the choice in retrospect, and it's a very good book, by the way. What is it called? The Paradox of Choice?
Paradox of Choice.
Yes, I'd like to thank all the esteemed speakers, including Professor Rozan. For this morning, we covered quite a range of topics: psychology of food choice, legislation, contribution, environment, social context, sense of technologies, Internet of Things. What I'm interested in, you talked about the food in the age of data. So this probably would be targeted to Professor Florence, right? So, but I'm interested in the health in the age of data. Obesity is a world problem, especially in Malaysia as well. Talking about the illusion of choice, I'm thinking about why, on one end, we have commensability. So food choices are basically guided by wisdom, communal wisdom, right? On the other end, we have maybe extreme awareness, so no longer enjoying food, so we have all the nutrition, things like that. Why don't we provide people with an illusion of choice? Through Solomon, for example, as an intervention. So I'm thinking about a project that uses Solomon as a intervention. And I would like to ask it, how is this feasible? Because instead of dictating or studying people's choices according to culture, why not we flip the model around? And we study them in their nature, natural setting where they choose, by providing them an illusion of choice, where we feed them the right food choices to a Solomon kind of. How would I get?
I just to so your idea is to just to give a framework.
Or feed them information. They have choices, an illusion of choice, but we feed them information and tell them this is a healthy choice. That's near you, for example, and you should eat out and you have these three choices, and we give them sufficient information for them to actually inform about that's the healthy choice for you or meal plan.
And you suppose people is able to take a decision from this information
Yes.
through social, local mobility and so on. Yeah, I think that it's an issue, but I'm afraid that it depends on the generation, on the. I think that these feelings are coming with young people like you, but I'm afraid that Jean-Pierre this morning was talking about silver economy, elderly people. I think that maybe it's more difficult with your digital or technological background.
Would it be a good project to pursue for future?
Oh, yes, of course, yes. But this one changed the human mind, the human brain, you see. I think that you can put anything at disposal. You can give any information. But even if you go through soluble devices, with the American people always choose the 50 flavors in spite of 10. I think that this will not change the face of the world.
Just some example. A lot of management people take the breakfast out. So a part of the decision are taken by people who deliver the Nazilimag, deliver the different things they will eat. That means the decision is not only in your hand. There is some cultural organization. Another example, in the French old people, the traditional menu with an appetizer, main course, and dessert is really the scenario of a meal. That means when my father comes at home, is what we have to eat today. The question is, what is the appetizer, what's the main course, what's the cheese, and what's the dessert? In fact, the choice exists, but its frame is a lot of routine, a lot of social organization, cultural organization. That means you cannot work only on the individual, because a lot of things, and that's the work we can do. And what is to go inside the routine and to see the routine, that we are working with routine. The menu in the restaurant is routine. It's something we like to use, and it was very interesting this morning to see a poll showing how we can see the routine, like music, for example, with a scenarization of this routine. And sometimes you have also, the routine could be quite large. A quite good paper of a colleague from Cornell, Jean-Pierre try to analyze what could be the scenario to eat in the evening in New York, in Manhattan. So, and okay, this evening we'll eat pizza. So the guy give a call, there is interaction between the guy and the lady, so all are defined and redefined. And when they decide to eat pizza, a lot of decisions are chained with this first decision. And he shows that there is not there is 5, 10 scenario, and in fact we decide the scenario. You don't decide the small things. So that's interesting, there is decision. But the decisions are really framed in cultural dimension, and we have to and social interaction and so on, the gender, the age, the ethnicity for an idea, and that's a part of the problem. Frame and a space of decision. You can go. I'm very happy with the student aspect. Continue. Sorry.
I just wanted to comment about not that, but rather the general project that we're involved in. So I wanted to tell you about a brief experience I had that's related to this. This was a meeting about emotion. They had the best people in the world in emotion. And what they did as a demonstration, which I think would be very useful for you, in your case it would be a few people eating dinner. You have a videotape of them eating dinner. And you show it to people who are really expert at different aspects of this. So in this particular case, it was a couple who had a marriage problem, and they were talking to each other, and they were wired up with some physiology. This is John Gottman does this. But the interesting thing is that 4 people talking. We were all sitting there, and they had 4 people each comment on this interaction. One was Poulain, and you saw what he was talking about, you hadn't even noticed. And then we had Klaus Shearer talking about the tone of voice that people were using. John Gottman talked about the content of the interaction, whether they were, what kind of events they were talking. And the 4th person was George Lakoff, a linguist, who talked about, on a totally different level, the kinds of things they were referring to. So what we saw there is that you could take the same event, complex event, and by seeing it through the eyes of different experts, you can get ideas about what you should be doing to, so rather than just going in and saying people are having an interaction over food, let's get some really skilled eyes to look at this and give you ideas about the kinds of things that might matter. Because one thing you learn when you're an expert is what not to pay attention to. A lot of medical school, as far as I can tell, is what symptoms you should pay no attention to. And that makes you a better doctor. So these people have been doing this for a while, and there are many of them. And I think it would be very useful for exercise for you to do something like this.
Fisher. The gallery hacked research that you mentioned from 2011. Was there a specific reason that school cafeterias were chosen instead of, say, university cafeterias or workplace cafeterias?
Yeah, because the interest was on children, yes. And also their school cafeterias are much more controlled, and there was interest in the ministry, the various ministries involved. But you see, this is a very, you said I said very general things, yeah, it's true. But I mean, I tried to give one single little example, very specific, and the kind of work that you know, this is one person's work, one woman's work, with devising entirely the methodology, getting all the needed authorizations, because it's very complicated when it comes to schools and education and parent authorization, teachers' unions, or whatever have you. And the amount of work that it represents, just analyzing one particular small scene, identifying the relevant scenes, and analyzing what is happening. Because I didn't give you the entire picture. The picture was also the involvement of, in terms of gender, there's a competitive game being played where the boy was, of course, doing some image management in front of the girls, and that she has shown in some other instances that you can now actually experimentally change the behavior of the boys by adding girls to the table. They will try to show off and be more more innovative and more bolder in their acceptance of novel foods in that particular example. And so this was just devised to illustrate, I think, what Jean-Pierre has in mind, and what he said was at the same time the object of the project and the difficulties that you would have to overcome if the to solve. I mean, for progress it would mean if the already project would work.
Yes, we have some questions on that side. Today.
Thank you for all the speakers. Actually, what you said on the computer science makes sense to me because I have a background in computer engineering, but at the same time I study in sociology and tourism. I have these artists now, so the old data is big data that you collected from the facial expression. How you can recognize the fake expression. If all of us were using different masks, either facial mask or local mask. So how you can differentiate all these things from the things? Because, for example, I'm going to the restaurant with my boss. So even he didn't prepare the food, he's asking me how was the food, to make him happy, perhaps I would say, oh, it was fantastic. So how you can differentiate all these things from the data that you have?
Yes, first is not only the motion. You explain it, you do well,
So even the voice, I mean, it's like verbal things that we're talking about, also we can put some mask on it. So it's the result, yeah, is somehow, it will affect the result.
There is a history of research, not very efficient, on the question of how we can get through, and we know that a lot of money was invested by the intelligence service on this question to try to understand how we can. That's the side. The other side is there is a lot of context where the question of you have a fake nuisance, to have a fake nuisance, crime, something, and we are more focusing on this question, but can listen on. I just begin to answer, but
maybe I just tell something and after I let my computer just answer if they want to say. But you can also ask the people. I mean, we have a focus group, and it's also because after you can ask the people to speak about the movie. So what they did at that time, if it was fake or not, they can comment on their facial expression. And there's not only the movie, you also have the possibility to interview the people, to ask them what they wanted to do, why they did it, and so you can. It's not 100% sure, but you can have a percentage, but it's fake or not.
I mean, it comes to my mind because Poulain was presenting that we want to skip the interviews, so we want to have more digital analysis rather than having the interviews. It's like hard to get every person get an interview from all the person that's involved. So that's why this comes to my mind. So how we can
In fact,
just one second. Even as a specialist of quality speed analysis, how you can be sure it's not fake? But that's very clear.
But I mean, I don't mean like fake, but the real story behind it. So it's like.
Yes, that's what we have. The main question for socialists and how to be sure that what people say to you is not built for you. That's one of the.
That's a big one.
The big one.
Yeah.
Big one. Not the big data, the big one.
We have a lot of social psychology.
Just you know, one of the advantages of globally, is that you have an automatic analysis, and so you avoid the question that Jean-Pierre is pointing. But then you can still make the interviews, and then it's not because you have an automatic analysis, but you do not need the interviews, but you will have better interviews because you can show them the pictures, and you can ask them what did you do at that time, and you have more trust that they were telling the truth when they answered. Yeah.
I think it's a question of response bias. And there are many ways, statistics that are shown that how bias can be reduced. So I think that leads to that.
Let's say something. I'm not really very familiar with Paul Ekman's work, but I seem to remember that he has several points he's made about how to recognize a faked expression. There's the issue of symmetry, if I remember correctly, and he even went as far as devising a lie detector based on facial expression. So that is, at least in part, taken care of or taken into account.
I'd like to go further into this fake thing. From your experience, are these cameras hidden? That means it's not your subjects are aware being, are they being televised? Are they hidden? Or they know that they're being filmed?
Before we consider
Because it carries two different implications. Hidden is you really catch them unaware of what they're doing. So if you have informed them this is the meal that you're going to eat and this is we're going to take this and things like that, then they change things. I don't know. Yes,
Okay, first, thank you, all of you, for your insightful thoughts. The question is maybe more oriented to Vincent, but I think that I believe that it can be a direct amount. It's more related from your observation about the link which can be between at least the generation of new equipment and the paradigm shift in, so it's in the hard science, in this case for the synchrotron, and how actually we can think about this in the case of social sciences with the concurrent paradigms. With, for example, Claude mentioned about the notion of commercialism, Jean-Pierre, you mentioned about the new flow of data. So how we can think about this question of paradigm shift? How is it happening actually in art science? And
in fact, the question of generation is something that is self-proclaimed. It means that people say that they are in the second generation, or the third, or the fourth. And they have a clue. It means that they have something new, which is allowing an instrumental breakthrough. Then you can have many paradigms who propose experiments. And if we turn to the synchrotron, you have biologists, you have chemists, you have art specialists. They are not at all in the same paradigm, but the tool is generic in the sense that it allows experiments which are very different, very various, which are not from the same disciplines, and which are not at all in the same paradigm. So you can have two biologists who are not in the same paradigm, who are doing about the same experiments, and they maybe won't find, they will find the same results, but they will get a very different interpretation of this. So it's more a question of instrumental possibilities that you speak of when you speak of generation.
But the social psychologists who have all sorts of problems in the way they are very sensitive, however, to the issues you're discussing. For example, the effect of being observed and the effect of what they call demand characteristics, your interpretation of what the experimenter wants. And they have all sorts of procedures to get around that. That is to find out, not so much to hide things, but to find out what people think the study is really about. And it's generally agreed by people who videotape that after at most a few minutes, people revert back to their normal pattern. I mean, it's really quite surprising that people get used to this very quickly. And it's amazing what people will do and say, 5 minutes after you turn the camera on, that you would never have thought they would have said before. So I don't know why that's true, but it seems to be an observation. By the way, ethically in the United States, you cannot videotape people without informing them. So there's an ethical
The
difference.
same Satinanu when in his building, which was a real-world experimental building, meaning that it was real offices where they were studying how office work works. So anyone entering the building had to sign informed consent form, and that's by law, it's absolutely necessary.